Hey folks, Ethan here from the Firelock and Quill podcast. Just a quick note, we recorded this particular episode at the 2024 Wilderness Road Martin Station event. So it's a little bit out of time here, but we wanted to release it in time for this year's Wilderness Road State Park Martin Station event coming up in the second weekend of May 2025. If you're in the area or if you're interested in this kind of event, this event, I'm telling you, is a fantastic one to get started. If it's your first event or if it's your 100th event, you would love getting out and going to this event. Look it up, check out the links in the description and the show notes for this episode to learn more.
All 18th century axes, saws, horses, rake and pulleys. Okay. You look at the machine, I don't think it's rolling. I didn't want to go the whole way.
I saw you peek a couple.
Yeah, it's like, is it really rolling?
Camera's been rolling this whole time.
So Jason just told me up north.
Welcome to Firelock and Quill podcast. You are joined by your hosts, John Townsend, Ryan Kerr, Ethan Yazel, and I am Jason Gatliff. We're sitting at Wilderness Road State Park in Ewing, Virginia, the home of historic Martin Station.
Yes, we are.
It is fantastic to be here.
So Ethan, this is your first time here.
This is absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of blowing my mind.
Okay.
I've always heard about Martin Station, and I've never had a chance to come. And you guys have bullied me over the last couple of years into coming, and I told my wife, let's go. She said, okay. So we loaded up our toddler yesterday and made the trip out. And it was kind of crazy pulling in because we didn't really know what to expect.
Sure.
We met several of you on our way in, and we got registered, and it was just kind of a whirlwind. And like all of a sudden, it's night, and we're doing this. And it's just been wonderful.
Yeah, I remember you just kind of walked up and said, so where you're camping? You're like, I have no idea. I thought it'd be a little bit more structured. Yeah. I think it's something that we should mention, too, that you came out to the Five Metals event last weekend.
Yep.
And that was your wife's first time camping.
Yes, that was. I didn't realize that it was. That was her first time sleeping outside.
Yeah.
And she did it in the 18th century, so she was like hardcore.
And she dove right into this.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Like
Five
the
Metals.
premier frontier site.
Yeah. It was kind of a warm-up last weekend, and she was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then it's like, okay, next weekend we're going to Virginia. Yeah, let's go.
It was funny because it was like day 2, and I was just chatting with her, and she said, yeah, this is the first time I ever slept outside. She's like, I think I've got some new ideas. Like, she was like, I see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
She got a little chilly. She was make sure that didn't happen again.
So how many years have y'all been married now?
Oh, geez. Got married in about 3. We're going on 4 years married.
And this is the first time you've taken your wife camping?
Yeah. It doesn't look good to me, on me. I get that. And I acknowledge that.
He's a better husband than that, ladies and gentlemen.
So as a stranger to coming here, what has been, I think, what's been for you the most impressive part of it?
I mean, I'm a cornfield boy.
Yeah.
And so this scene is just remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had brought all of my period, like, plein air painting equipment. Like, I have a small watercolor set and a book. But you could just come here and paint all weekend.
You could.
And you'd always have something new to paint.
I couldn't.
Well, no, you couldn't.
Yeah, I can't draw. I can draw Homer Simpson's head. That's it.
That's one of my most cherished pieces in my collection.
Well, for me, it's bringing cameras or whatever,
Sure,
right? Or whatever.
Yeah, I'm planning to just turn loose with the camera tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, just little snapshots here and there. Little, little vignettes you can just kind of steal almost. Like, it's just so immersive. Like, it's like an immersive private event out in the woods with like a couple buddies, but just at a grand scale. And it's just all there. I mean, you come in and it's just boom. It's the 18th century and you're...
So are you up on the hill?
I'm up on the hill, yeah.
Right, you've got that great scene.
Yes.
It's almost too bad that it is too bad that there's some of those trees that are right there by the fort. Yes, they're nice for shade and everything, but they also block a lot of the view, especially as you come in through those trees. But you get the great view from up on top of the hill. It's actually a better, interesting way of seeing what's going on.
Paisley was remarking on that as we ate dinner and cooked, just because you can just look all around you and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for folks who haven't been here before, when you drive into the event, it's like driving into any other, state-owned site. There's a visitor center, and you're kind of on this blacktop road, but there's this beautiful mountain ridge that's just behind you're driving essentially towards. And then once you park, there's a hill to your left, and if you get here before the event, it's just an empty hill.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, you don't see anything, and you can't see the fort when you pull up. You can see a couple of cabins. But if you go through a small little tree line, there's a fort nestled right at the bottom of this ridge. And then as folks come in to start camping, that hill fills up with tents, and it just turns into this different, majestic kind of place. I really don't know how else to describe it other than that word. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it feels almost like the set of a movie or in the environment in a game,
Right.
that kind of thing.
My personal favorite vantage point is about halfway up the hill where you can see the camps lit up with the candle lanterns and the fires, and then you can see the fort and the fires going on in there, and just kind of being in the center of all the activity, the traders area, the camp, the fort. It's pretty magical. Every direction you look is pretty much 18th century.
Yeah, the first time that I came here was when I was just learning how to use a camera. And John is always great about getting us up early for great light, because if it was up to me, I'd sleep right through it. I'm not a morning person. But we were up at 5:30, and nobody else was up, and we're just kind of walking around taking pictures of people's camps and taking pictures, playing with light. And John was taking these really wonderful livestock pictures, and we were just kind of catching scenes as people emerge from their tent and they have their coffee.
They look like they came out.
Right. There's this one shot that I'll never forget that you got on top of the hill with the sunrise kind of between these two guys that were sitting having their morning coffee. This is a wonderful photograph. Yeah. So you, Jason, worked at this site for, I don't know,
About 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, from
And so-
04 to 08.
Okay. You want to give us a little bit of history about the
Sure.
site?
So originally the fort was built the spring of 1775. Joseph Martin came down, and it was the last bit of civilization before you got to the Cumberland Gap and then into Kentucky. So he came here and built the fort. And then as Henderson and Boone came through after the Watauga-Sycamore Shoals Treaty, they came through, they stopped here. This is where Henderson left his wagons while they finished the road, and they went on into Kentucky. So it was the last kind of waypoint. And it really didn't last very long. The fort was only here for about a year and a half or so. And then as the Revolutionary War started heating up and as more Indian trouble started happening, Joseph Martin left the fort and went back to Charlottesville, Virginia.
But even after he left the fort, the Cumberland Gap remained the main thoroughfare through the Appalachians, other than taking the river.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. There's two ways to pretty much to get to Boonesboro. You had to go through the Gap, the Great Wagon Road, or the Ohio River to the Kentucky River to Boonesboro. Right. And I don't remember who it was, but I want to say like 78, 79, someone came through here, and they no, I don't remember who it was, but they said the fort was here but abandoned, and they stayed here. Okay. I wish I could remember who that was.
Now, do you know how tall this ridge is off the top of your head?
I do not.
I've always wondered that.
And it's not a ridge, that's the Cumberland Mountains.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not sure how tall
Definitely
it is.
not passable unless you're, other than the Gap, right?
Right.
It's just like, you look at them, they're beautiful, but that's not climbable. That's not realistic.
Yeah, if you're anywhere from Pennsylvania, Virginia down, that's the only way to get into Kentucky other than the river.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Are we at any kind of elevation here?
Not significant. I think
Okay.
maybe 1,000 feet.
Okay.
Same as back home.
Right.
No, I was wondering because I've heard about this village up on top of the mountains, and I've just been so curious about that. And have you ever been up there?
I have not been up there, but that's the Hensley settlement. It's part of the Cumberland Gap National Historical Park, and you can go on tours up there. I believe it's 1880s, but I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe even partially. I mean, it was inhabited until
1920, 1930,
Right, exactly.
something like that.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, a couple caregivers live there year round, which is really neat.
Yeah.
Somebody was telling me that today. So What year did they rebuild the fort?
So the fort was built during the summer of 2002. It was about a 6-month-long living history project where different reenactors lived here on site. They worked on the fort 6 days a week using only 18th century tools and methods. So horses, ropes and pulleys, axes, saws. It was all built as it would have been built in the 18th century.
Wow.
Although the original was built in like a month.
Right.
Because they knew what they were really doing. But yeah, it was a really great thing. And in addition to the building, you had volunteers coming and going. They'd stay for a week or 2 weeks or a couple of days, whatever they could manage. You had attacks and little skirmishes as they tried to get a true experience of what it might have been like in the 18th century building the fort on the frontier.
And from what I understand, those weren't like scheduled attacks. They didn't know when they were coming.
No,
right?
they were not scheduled at all. It would just be another reenactor go, hey, let's go attack the fort.
That's so nuts.
So was there public interaction during that time? Were people in like observing the construction?
Absolutely, yes. It was all done.
Wow.
I mean, you're in the state park, so the people are coming and visiting, and people would bring food and drinks and, try to share in and all that kind of stuff.
And just a couple years after that is when you worked here.
Yeah, 2 years after that. I started coming here at the first raid, which was in 2001. So the first 2 raids were held in April of 2001, 2002, and there was no fort, just a couple of cabins. In the summer of 2002, the fort was built, and then I think the third raid might have still been in April, but they might have moved it to the second weekend in May. It was somewhere in there. I know in 2004 it was the second weekend in May.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Billy was telling me earlier today that some years it would be snowing for the
Yes,
raid.
yes.
Which kind of blew my mind.
It was very cold here when it was in April.
Yeah.
Very cold.
So we're in Billy's office.
We are.
need to shout out Billy Heck real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Billy is a great boss. Worked for him for several years, and he was kind enough to open up the visitor center, or have his people open up the visitor center. And we're here recording in his office. And I don't know who the state park employee was that had the idea of rebuilding Martin Station, but it was actually gunsmith from Vincennes, Larry McCoy.
Okay.
Larry McCoy, they were at some kind of state park conference, and they were talking about rebuilding Martin Station. Larry McCoy said, you need to get in touch with Billy Heck. He researches Joseph Martin. He's the man. So Billy came on to work here in 1999, I believe.
Okay. So before he had that role, he was already researching that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Billy was an active reenactor. He was in the second company that, if you read any of the Mark Baker articles that were in Muzzleloader in the 1990s about Captain Tom, Billy was a second company hunter. He was out there doing it, living it.
Okay. Wow.
That's such a fascinating period, I think, for living history. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how far does this park stretch?
I really don't know. I want to say it's about 80 acres or 100 acres.
Okay.
So it's not huge, but it's not tiny. There's parts of it on the road over here behind us, and some other paddocks, but it's not huge.
And they do events throughout the year. Like, this isn't the only event that this happens.
This is the biggest event, but they do a militia muster, which is just what they call their monthly gathering, the second weekend of every month, pretty much from March through November. And sometimes there's one in December, and sometimes there's one earlier, but it's really weather dependent. But definitely March through November, they have a militia muster, and those are absolutely fantastic, because when you get in there and close the fort up, you have a true 18th century experience.
Wow. And they've got people coming from states all around.
Every month.
Yeah.
Every month, yeah.
It's crazy. I know Simeon comes really regularly to those, and he lives quite a ways away.
He's not that far away. I want to say he's about 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
Ty Davis comes up every one. He's about 6 hours away down in Georgia.
Whew.
Yeah.
I would come up for a lot when I lived in Georgia, because I grew up in Georgia, and I would come here, and I came here and volunteered so much. I was here one year for the Christmas event, the 2003 Christmas event, and Billy said, why don't you come work for us?
Okay.
And I said, I'm in. And so moved up here in May the next year.
Wow. And then when was your first one, John?
Yeah, seven years ago. At least so Ivy says.
Okay.
And this is a very special event for you and Ivy because
Yeah, this Ivy and I always come to this event. It's something she requests to come to after I can't remember why it happened the first time. Why she came the first time, but it's her birthday weekend, so that's what she wants for her birthday.
that's pretty awesome that she wants to come here and experience this for her birthday.
That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And for us, I think that this event kind of opened up a whole new world. We met you
Yeah.
met the Trapos here,
Right. Kevin and I were here that I think, first time.
And so not only did you meet, a lot of reenactors that we've grown close with, but a lot of reenactors that we've put out a lot of content. We've worked
Yes.
on a lot of videos
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
And I think that, isn't this event why the Getting Started series was spawned?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, which
Wow.
is nuts. And then, we ended up doing almost, I guess it's a full-length feature with the Carol Trapo,
Right.
which is nuts.
Right. We did that one piece with that first time we were here. We shot the Jim Wilson
That's right.
piece. We did the Billy Heck one where he was on the porch there, and we shot some of that. And we did the Carol one and the French trader. Can't remember his name.
Tony Gerard.
Yes, Jarbo.
Gerard.
Gerard. Yeah.
Jean-Baptiste.
And Jackie.
Yes, Jackie
Yeah.
Fisher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, you guys shot a lot of
Yeah, we
stuff
did.
that trip.
We
You cleaned up.
we squeezed down a lot of.
But it's funny too because those for our channel and the longevity of it, those kind of people that you met here, we ended up doing the log barn build with Jim and his crew.
Right.
And then through that connection, we went to Kentucky and we did the Trek videos.
Yes.
We've done. If it wasn't for this event, our channel would be about 100 videos later.
Yeah. It's been a really a foundational kind of cornerstone for because we haven't, as a business, haven't come down into this area and done that many events. Right. So it was opening up a whole new set of people, that getting to know them and having fun with that.
Yeah, it's been wonderful for even the Blue Lion to do that because it existed for 20 years with Dave Taylor.
Yeah.
But he stayed kind of in that Indiana, Ohio area. He didn't really venture too far out of that, maybe Michigan. Right. And when we started coming down here now, we see regular monthly orders from places like Virginia and Tennessee and stuff. But folks that we know, we met here. Mm-hmm. And so that's been really cool. And I feel like this community, so many people that are here are craftspeople and they want to support craftspeople.
Right.
And so it's just really neat to see.
You want to buy from your friends. You want to support your friends. You're not just a coffee vendor. They get to know Ryan. They get to know Nicole. Yeah. They get to know John. Now they're getting to know Ethan.
Hey.
So they can buy stickers and mugs. But you think about it, the Indiana connection is pretty neat because, like I said, if it weren't for Larry McCoy making that suggestion, who knows what Martin Station would look like now?
Yeah.
I mean, this was really Billy's vision.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And I first heard about it, it was 1999. I worked for Tennessee State Parks. We were doing a program for National Trails Day. We were at Natchez Trace Parkway. It was me and Aaron Ehlert and Jinglebach and some other members of the second company. And Jinglebach said, if Billy Heck ever gets this place built in Virginia, we're going to have a Valhalla to go play at.
Yeah.
And he did, and we do.
He was. That's why I was almost late, as I was talking to Jinglebach, and he was running me through.
He'll make you late.
I'll have to tell you someday about riding to Friendship with Aaron and Jinglebach.
Oh, that's got to be a wonderful time.
It was the second longest day of my life. But fantastic experience. I'll just leave it at this. Aaron picked me up at 5 a.m. And he dropped me off at 4 a.m. We arrived at Friendship at 4:30 p.m.
Didn't you say that folks were walking out as you were walking in? They were like,
Kyle Weird was walking out. He said,
my gosh.
You're just now getting here? Yeah.
So how do you know Jinglebach? Is it from Friendship?
He's just started coming back to Friendship, but I think just the antique long rifle world.
Okay.
I think we've just bounced around online some. We've passed at several events over the last couple of years, but you can just, something I've really noticed here is I don't know a whole lot of the people here, and they don't know me, But we can sit down and an hour goes by just like that.
Yeah.
And it's like we've known each other forever. I mean,
So, you know how we were talking about the first few raids were really cold?
Yeah.
So the first raid, we threw up a hovel that we slept in. Me and Jinglebach and Aaron and some other people, we just all had a piece of canvas and we built this shelter, and calling it a hovel is really doing it way overselling it. But Jinglebach, as you notice, runs around barefoot.
Yeah.
And at night he usually puts on wool moccasins. I mean, not moccasins, but wool stockings. And it was cold, so I was sleeping in wool mittens. Time to come to go to bed. It was dark. I found one mitten. So I had to sleep with one hand in my armpit and the other hand in the mitten. And the next morning we wake up and Captain Titus, who was one of the first employees here after Billy, he's standing there with a steaming cup of coffee and this little grin he had. Captain Titus was also a second company member. And he said, "Jingle Bones, what's that on your foot?" And I looked over and he's wearing my mitten on his foot with the thumb just sticking out. Well, I'm going to have to wash that.
yeah, Jinglebach just runs around with those dogs out. They're just out.
Even when we came to Indiana in 2001 and came to participate in the a tactical event that John Curry was putting on, he was running around Brown County. I think it was Brown County. It's Hoosier National Forest, running around barefoot.
Wow.
If I ran into him in street clothes, I wouldn't know it was him because he'd have shoes on, probably.
Oh, yeah. You would recognize him.
Yeah, part of this event and a big part of it is the people.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a great location. You know, it's a great construction to come in and participate in, and the set of people is just incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My teenagers came this time, and my son, yesterday he was wearing street clothes because we came in, and he said, "I want to go see the fort." And I said, "Buddy, you can't go down to the fort wearing those street clothes." And I don't think there are many events that line is so hard, but you don't want to ruin that for folks here. You know how much they count on that.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, if you're going to go down there, you've got to be ready. You got to look the part.
I mean, I got here Wednesday afternoon, and this is way before the event has started. There's 4 people in the fort, and I changed into period clothes to go hang out at the fort Wednesday night. So we had dinner in the fort just a few minutes ago before we started the podcast, and Silas was up there, and he was rather enjoying the fried chicken we had. That Monica, who cooked it, said, "I don't know your parents," and he said, "My parents are Ryan and Nicole Kerr. I can eat this." And I said, "Silas can eat it. He's good."
That's funny. We do know Monica, but I don't think she knows him, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he comes to a historic site, he owns it immediately.
Well, that's I don't think very many places kids can just, melt into a thing like that. And a site like this is incredible to enjoy when you're a child.
Absolutely. They get just free range children time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I get to play, cops and robbers, except it's in the real location with real clothes and all this fun. You get to play with other kids.
Yeah, and I think that, I've talked to a lot of folks that want to get into reenacting, but they're like, I think that we're probably going to wait until our kids are a little older. I'm like,
No, that's a mistake. Bring kids in.
Yeah. I think my daughter's 2. She'll be 2 next week. And as I was setting up the tent, I think she visited every single one of our neighbors.
Yeah.
And she just basically ran their camps. I mean, she just walked in, was looking inside and peeking in boxes and all sorts of things. And it was just incredible to hear the conversations. I mean, my wife, we've talked about, is fairly new to this end of things. But it was just, she had a dozen more friends by the time our tent was up. And people that she could go talk to or already had conversations with. And she's hasn't grown up in this. It's a little alien to her, but it's been really comforting for her to be so new and for everybody to be so kind. I mean, it was a little jarring coming in, but by the time we got things set up and we got into our clothes, it was just like we were at home.
And that's funny.
Fast.
I don't know any other kind of subcultures or whatever where all it takes is for somebody to identify you as their own by the clothes that you're wearing. But as soon as people, I mean, if you come in jeans and a t-shirt, folks are going to be kind to you, but you're not going to be in the fold.
You're not going to see behind the curtain.
Right. But as soon as you don the clothing, it's done. You're part of it.
Well, and the funny part is you know these people in clothing, and you don't see them in clothing. It's like, I don't know who that person is. Oh, I know who that person, So,
I'll relay a story here that I don't remember it at all, but Paul Brennan that's walking around, Squire Brennan, who is very recognizable everywhere he goes because he's always dressed incredibly well. He came down here when an event was going on, just in street clothes, not registered, not anything, and he ran across Aaron Elert and I and some others sitting out on the path, and he stopped and talked to us, and he said he was a reenactor, and I asked, did you bring your clothes? And he said, yeah. I said, go get them. And I hounded him, and he went and put them on and got juried and started participating, and he reminds me of that just about every time we see him.
that's funny.
He said, that's the first time I ever met you, and you encouraged me to go get dressed, and I had a ball that weekend.
That's good. Yeah, it's funny because I normally don't. I do pretty well with faces. I'm terrible with names. And when I first started working at Townsend's, the first several years, I was the shopkeep, and I made different things. I made kits of product and clay pipes and that sort of thing. And when people would come in, I would show them around the store. And so there are so many people that come up to me at events. They say, "Oh, you gave us a tour," and I have no idea. Because they were wearing street clothes when they came in. I was just like, I'm sorry. I have no recollection of this whatsoever.
You were just generic modern person. Who knows who you were?
So if anyone's listening that do want to get into living history, find a living history site or find a historical site near you. Find out what their schedule is. Chances are they're going to have a core group of volunteers, and if you just go there and express any kind of interest at all, you will be welcomed with open arms. We've brought so many people in this hobby when I worked here.
Yeah, and bring your kids.
Absolutely.
There was a couple. They came to 5 Metals, and that was their first dressed out event. And they'd gotten a hold of us beforehand because they knew us from Kalamazoo. We talked to them for a while, and this is what we have. This is what we have. Do you think it's going to work? And they brought their daughter. I think she was 11, maybe 12. And the first day, halfway through, she was ready to go home. She's like, I don't know about all this. And her mom said, I think that if she could just find, somebody her age, then she would feel great. I said, well, my daughter's 11, getting ready to turn 12, and then that was it. It came 2 days later. It's time to go home, and she was begging her parents to stay.
That's great.
So, Ethan, have you even had a chance to kind of see any of the gunsmith shop or talk to anybody about
No, I caught Anthony Weingar's presentation.
Okay.
And then have just done a lot of talking, just catching up with people that I've either known online, or this is the first time we've interacted in person, or just hanging out. Okay. So I'm excited to catch the rest of it tomorrow. Try to take in the site in between just the great conversations. Yeah.
Now, historically, is there anything specific or different about flintlocks that are from this area, from what you would typically shoot or what you're used to?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's just kind of that Rev War period and post-Rev War period. I mean, I think it's a pretty iconic period, though, wouldn't you say, Jason?
Rev War,
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't really many gunsmiths here right now because, as I said, it was a way station and people were passing through on the way to Kentucky. Kentucky was the goal. And, they were trying to establish a new society there in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So, not really a style here, not at this time period. There was a style in the 1810s, 1820s. You had the Bean School not far from here, the Bean School of Rifles, Tennessee makers. But yeah, pretty much everything here was Augusta County, Fincastle County, anything you find along the Great Wagon Road.
Okay. Now, as a station here historically, I'm guessing that this would be a place that you could stock up on dry goods and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And there would probably also be a blacksmith here that's fixing things before you head through into Kentucky, maybe a gunsmith that's taking care of that,
Yes.
flint knappers, that sort of thing.
I don't know about a flint knapper, but absolutely on the other ones.
Okay. What else would there have been? Anything that we're missing there? I mean, I'm sure it was like a little society in and of itself, even though people are passing through.
It was, but it was predominantly just just temporary. It was people passing through.
Right.
I mean, you had Martin, and then you had a few core group of people, but I'm not sure what the trades were. That'd be a better question to ask Billy.
Okay.
Well, it might almost be a place where it also kind of you leave stuff behind,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because you're going from, I can bring a wagon here to, from here on, it's, single lane, right? So it's like, can't take this, can't take that. So who knows what kind of junk was laying around, all the chairs and strangeness.
Well, I mean, Richard Henderson, they had 150 wagon loads of goods that they left here for a couple of months until they could finish cutting the road. But you saw the remnants of the wagon that's sitting out behind the blacksmith shop. Imagine how much stuff you can pack in one of those wagons. So one thing we'll talk about in a future episode is some misconceptions of the 18th century. And one is the lack of material culture on the frontier. And that's simply not true when you think about what all you could fit in a wagon like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll leave that. We'll tease that one for this.
But the idea of them, so they finish the road, and then wagons full steam ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
Straight up to Boonesboro.
All right. We're not doing pack horses anymore. We're taking full-on wagons.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So how wide of a road are they cutting?
Just big enough for a wagon.
Just a single wagon wide.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And that's probably only 4 feet, 5 feet wide.
Probably about 6, 8
You think,
feet.
you think it's that wide?
Because I think the bed of the wagon is about 4 foot wide, and then plus
Right.
you've got the axles and the wheels and all.
Yeah,
So probably 6, 8 feet.
I don't know. Were they pulling them with 2 horses side by side, or just a
Usually
single
like
oxen?
two
So
oxen.
2 oxen. Yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely two horse, 2 oxen carts.
Right.
It makes you wonder also just like how trafficked that road was. I mean, is it just person after person after person, or is it every couple of weeks somebody comes through, or is it every couple of months somebody comes through? I'm sure you don't have an answer, but
I don't have an exact answer, but it was a lot. Somewhere there was a figure, and it was a long range. It was from like 75 to 79. How many people traveled through the gap, but it was thousands.
okay. Wow.
By 77, you had, I believe, William Martin Station in Kentucky. You had, what was the other one that they were attacked in 1780? Martin's Ruddle Station. You had Logan's Station. Of course, Boonesboro was the biggest one. And there were other stations a little bit later, but that's just after Martin's is abandoned.
And at this time, Kentucky is still Virginia territory, right?
Technically.
Okay.
I mean, they were trying to form a 14th colony, the Transylvania colony, and then Virginia claimed it a little bit. Well, if you look at the maps, Virginia goes all the way to the Mississippi River.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And according to was it the 69 treaty or where no settlements were supposed to go past the Appalachia or the Allegheny Mountains,
Right.
the Cumberland Mountains, that whole mountain chain. And so Henderson then were really breaking the law by establishing this 14th colony.
Didn't stop them.
It did not stop.
So are there any things that tomorrow, are there any things to check off your list?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, I've walked a little bit through the fort. I've walked a little bit through the camp. But yeah.
You still hadn't even have a chance.
Yeah, I'm still just like, it's my first day at Disneyland.
Right.
It's like, I was planning on sleeping in a little bit because it's just been a light sleep week, but now I'm just like, no, I'm going to be up at sunrise and I'm going to be exploring.
Well, make sure to go on the fort ride, because that's really good.
I like the log plume. So when you get up at sunrise, your first stop, you've got to get over to Blue Line Coffee.
That's right.
No, you sit out there and you watch the sun come up over and see the fort get lit up.
Okay.
That's a good.
I'd stay on the hill until the sun's up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely would.
It's pretty.
Because you're not going to be serving coffee until the sun's up, right?
Well, breakfast opens at 7,
Okay.
but you're missing out.
That's midday, man, for me.
right.
No.
Right. Yeah. I'll still have sleep in my eyes when I start slinging coffee for sure.
But what would you guys recommend for me to see or try to see tomorrow or try to do? Because you guys are pros.
For me, it's like a homecoming, so I'm here mainly for the people. I've
Yeah.
seen the scenery a lot.
Right.
So I'm not sure what
Well,
I
that
could
counts. The
recommend.
people counts.
The
Yeah.
people count.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing Wallace Gussler's seminar tomorrow. Mark Baker's going to give a seminar tomorrow afternoon.
You don't want to miss that.
Aaron Ehlert is going to do a seminar.
Okay.
His are always really
Oh,
good.
really? Oh, good.
Plus, we heckle him, and that's a
I
lot
thought
of fun.
Anthony's was tomorrow, and I missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Anthony's.
It
I
was
wanted
good.
to come to yours, but I missed it also.
It was fun.
Did you do a good
You
job?
had one today?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
did a
talked about
coffee
He
talk.
just talked about coffee.
Oh.
You can hear that
Right,
anytime.
Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
Any old time.
I can just call up.
No, it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Marcus asked me to do that, and I said, yeah, because it was like, a month ago. And then then I was planning to.
Like yesterday, he went, "Oh no, when am I going to talk to
I was
her?"
planning to really kind of like narrow it down my talking points on the ride here, but it was just storming like crazy, and we're pulling the trailer, and I slept a lot. So I was talking to Nicole, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to say about coffee that I haven't already said in the video, and then I thought, well, it's okay to rehash some of that stuff and see where else it can go. So
Yeah, not everybody's watched that video.
Right.
So I've got a question for you and John. Having been here when the raid was going on, and now having been here for the third year without the raid, what do you think?
You want to take this? You want to go first?
Yeah, the raid was good. The raid is something that is missed, and unfortunately, we don't live in a world that's easy to do anymore, especially on state land. And you got to play by a different set of rules as our modern world changes. I think they're figuring out how to do it.
For my take, having been coming here for 20 years, I actually like the event better without the raid.
Maybe.
I mean, the battle was fun, but once you've done it a time or two, once
Yeah,
you've seen it a
sure.
time or two,
Yes.
it's rehashing the same thing every year. But this, it's just more relaxed. It's more fun. You don't have that.
Unfortunately,
hecticness.
some people have, taken it into their head that that's a bad thing, and they're going to kind of, pseudo boycott it or just not make it their, to-do event, which is too bad because
too bad.
they're missed.
They're missed, and I think
Yeah.
they're missing out. And
Yes, exactly.
I'll paraphrase what another employee told me a few weeks ago at another event. An employee of this park, they said, "You can't hurt the state by
Yeah.
not coming. You
Exactly.
can only hurt us."
Yes.
Yeah, I think that. So, the first time I saw a battle reenactment was a Civil War battle reenactment when I was in middle school. And I remember then, this isn't really my thing. Like, I remember thinking, I was very excited to go. And I just didn't connect with it. And so, battles, although I will say, out of all that I've seen, the raid was the best. It was just fantastic. But battle reenactments, I don't get nearly as much from them as I get from other aspects of what was going on even when the raid was happening. And so I sit on the board of 5 Metals, and we want that to be, we continue to work towards that being just one of the best educational events. I think that this is the one to beat. And I think that that's a very tall order, because I think that this, as far as education goes, is one of the best events that we have. And I think it's gotten more so since the raid is not the primary focus.
But we also have to understand that events are made from a combination of the participants and public. And what draws public isn't necessarily, it doesn't have to be what the participants want the most. And one of the things that does draw public is the battle, even though, but for them, it's like once a year.
Right.
So it's like, and for a lot of reenactors, like, they're doing a battle this weekend, whatever, I'm not going to be all that interested.
But for the reality of it, since this is such a isolated and rural area that doesn't have a huge population center, they've seen the same battle. And,
Yes.
And the number of public was not coming in.
Right.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
they're doing the same thing again.
And I'm not sure that the public that came to see the battle integrated with the rest of the event. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But
Just
I'm
come
not sure
for
that
that.
they
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
came to Merchants Row and really checked out the fort as much. I think that they stayed on the hill, they watched the battle, and
Yeah.
then they went home.
Yeah, you would definitely see that. You'd see the hill full, and then just a few public again.
Right. Well, and they tended to have it right at the end of the, the big one was right before evening, right?
The
And
night
then-
battle was. The
Right.
big battle was
Oh,
at 1
was it
o'clock
during
during
the
the
day?
day, and then
Yeah,
the night battle was always the
Right.
really interesting one, because
Yeah.
that's where the cabin burned and you
Yeah.
could see lights and fires and all. But for me, as someone who tries to have an authentic experience, when you're in a battle, once you fire that first blank, you've just killed the experience. You can be, this is fake. Once you fire
Yeah.
that blank.
I see. Okay. Well, that is interesting because the demonstrations are real.
The demonstrations
The
are real. The
blacksmith,
crafts
they're
people.
really forging something.
Yeah.
And they're, I mean, and there doesn't have to be any kind of cheesy backstory. Oh, I need to I need to shoe my horses.
Right.
You know, no, it's just like, this is something that's useful and that needs to be made.
And you're really here roasting coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we found with the channel is that as we see, we've seen a generational change in reenacting. You know, it's like reenacting in the 70s is different than reenacting in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and here we are cleared, 224. And I think people less and less are looking for that, they're giving us the narrative and here's the script, right? We don't want that anymore, and we don't need to have as much of that, kind of hold your hand to understand what's going on. It's like, no, this person's demonstrating this item, and I can learn about it this way.
Yeah, it's kind of my favorite way to tell a story anyways. Like
Yeah.
I just went to see a movie called Civil War, and I thought it was fantastic. I didn't know anything about it going into it. Nicole and I had a date night. We don't get many. We decided to go see a movie, and that was the movie. And it drops you in, and you have no idea what's going on. And there's no really beginning, and there's kind of a conclusion, but you don't really know what the country's at war. You don't know why. You just know that it's happening. And I don't need somebody to fill in all those blanks for me. It's a lot more fun for me to try to fill them in myself anyways.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that... Now, one question that I have for you guys that like to shoot guns and who collect, is the lack of a battle... I guess, is the battle a way for a lot of folks that care about their guns and that care about the history and how tactical long hunters might have been or warriors might have been? Is it kind of their way of trying out those skills and maybe they're missing that?
Could be. That's an interesting perspective. I haven't thought about that.
That's interesting.
Usually when we were trying out those skills, though, we were doing it in the woods at a private
Yeah.
event where it wasn't a scripted battle, where there was a tactical element, where you had to learn maneuvering and such.
Yeah, it even seems like a lot of trying out those skills would be to actually target shoot to see about accuracy and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just thought maybe this is not just a playtime for them, but it's to say, I've worked at this all year. This is what happened last year at the battle. I don't want that to happen again. I want to do this better. And I know a lot of people either grew up watching movies or they saw Last of the Mohicans and they're like, I wonder if I really can run and like load and shoot all at the same time.
The answer is no.
That is not allowed on park property.
But it does. Is there a way for that hobbyist? Maybe it's a way for that hobbyist to kind of test their limits.
Yeah.
So,
Possibly.
I would argue that you can do that at your home range, as long as that's permitted. I mean, that's something that I've been playing around with. Is like, yeah, I'm not running in a battle, but how many times can I run from this fence post to that tree, and how does my loading change in between that?
Yeah, that's what I do at home.
Right. Yeah. That's what every normal
One
hobbyist
thing to
does.
think about, though, in the 18th century when they were loading on the run, they weren't loading in 100 yards or 200 yards. They were loading over like a quarter mile because they were trying to get away from whatever was
sure.
attacking.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the kind of perspective that isn't like misinterpreted, but I think it's steered one way or the other, maybe sometimes with some of the battle reenactments. Is like you said, it's not how that worked.
No.
And you're I think in that situation, especially as the reenactor, your body's reacting differently.
Sure.
Like, I would argue that your heart rate is going up more just because we're coming off of turkey season in Indiana. When a turkey comes into view, more than it is in a battle reenactment.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's real. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of a dichotomy, I guess, of the reenactors and the public, because they see that as that's real history. Like, this happened. And in many
places in many cases it did, but it's not as the real everyday life wasn't necessarily as entertaining.
Sure.
You know, making a stool or making a chest.
It's only just real life and what
Yeah.
really people would
Right.
do.
Well, and it also bears saying that there was never a battle here at the original fort.
Right.
This was all done strictly for the public's entertainment. So we're not canceling a part of history or not telling a part of history. We were just doing something for fun that never happened here in this area.
Yeah, I think that the living history world is really trying to take you back to square one and say, okay, if the battle worked before and it's not working as much now, what do people want to see?
So, do you guys think that is a side effect of like Hollywood productions of showing battles and things? Because we're several years separated from that now, of the big blockbusters that showed that. Do you think people's interest is just waning in that? Or do you think it's just a cultural change?
Well, if you look at fight scenes and all in Hollywood, they've so exaggerated human abilities, that unless you really show something that's basically like a Superman, you don't have the audience's interest, it seems. So that could be part of it. The battle scenes in Napoleon, by the way, are really, really good.
Are they? I haven't seen it.
They're pretty good. The new Napoleon movie.
I forgot about that.
I think that, and this is I don't know. You might disagree with this. I think that a lot of folks that are coming up are tired of war. Period. They're tired of war.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Generation Z kids, and they have no interest in battles, war, and I think that millennials are very much the same way in a lot of ways, and I think it's different geographically throughout the country.
Yeah.
In some places, you're raised more on hunting, and you're raised more on fighting. In some places, less, right?
Yeah.
But I think that I think a lot of people are just tired of war, and they're more interested in skills because a lot of these kids, they don't have any
Skills?
real life skills. Right? No, I'm just like I think that there are a lot of people that have great skills, like they can code, they can build a website by the time they're 11.
Yeah.
Right? They can edit video, they can run a camera, they can do a lot of really cool things, but they don't know how to build something.
Right.
And they don't, and so when you come to a place like this and you see a weaver weaving, and it's like, what the heck is going on here? That's structurally sound,
And it
you're just
exists.
right?
Like so many of the things that you mentioned, those tools have been converted into keyboard and mouse clicks.
Right.
And working on something like an 18th century trade, when it's done, it's there. You can feel it. You can feel the grain of that wood.
That was such a huge thing for me when I started working at Townsend's.
Yeah?
Because I came up, we moved a lot, and we rented. So when you rent, you don't fix things. The landlord fixes things. And you don't, you don't have any stock in your property. You don't really plant things, unless you're renting at the same place for a long time, right? And so coming up, I didn't learn, I think that I learned more than a lot of people around me, but I still didn't learn as much as I wanted to. And so working at Townsend's, and it's like, oh, I make things now. That was really cool. Like even little things like a hand forged fish hook. It's like, I made this. I can do that. That's really, really interesting. And it's a skill that is going to branch out into other things that I do. And that was empowering to me.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is true for sure. And then I think also couple that with something I said in the interview I did with y'all several years ago, that we live in such a disposable society now that products are factory made. There's no emotional connection to these items. Whereas you come out and you're talking to the person who built the rifle, the person who held the hammer and forged this hook or frying pan or striker or whatever. And I think that gives a more concrete connection to the item than just a tote at Walmart or what have you.
I think they can relate that to, or people can relate that to things that they use in their lives. I think that it's like there are military veterans, but not everybody is a military veteran. And I think seeing a battle only can give you so much connection, whereas seeing kind of your allegory of what would have been then to something that you might be familiar with today gives you a little bit more of a connection, maybe.
I think a lot of young people too now, they're so many generations removed from pre-industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think at the bicentennial when this really took off, people's great grandfathers and grandfathers still had these skills.
Yeah.
You know, they could remember a time where if something broke, you went out to your shop and you made it work.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just not what a lot of young people, they don't have any connection to that whatsoever. Now you go to the hardware store and you buy the part that's in the package, or better yet, you order it from Amazon and hope that it's the right thing when it gets here.
Yeah, that's the world I grew up in, right? So my grandfather was a builder, and my father was a machinist, and he made stuff all the time, and had to work wood shop, and
Yeah, you could
That's what he
argue
did.
that none of this would exist without home and garage shops.
yeah.
Of guys that got off work and then went out to their little shop. I mean, my grandfather built muzzleloaders. He'd come home from the spring shop where he worked his entire career, and then after dinner he'd go back to the spring shop to build muzzleloading parts because he was allowed to go back in and make parts on the equipment they had in that shop. And that's something that I don't know of any business that would let you go in after hours like that to work on your own stuff using their equipment.
So you're third generation in muzzleloading.
Yes. Well, I'm fourth on one side.
You're fourth on one side. And John, you're second generation in living history.
Yeah, it's hard to say how you, yes. Yeah.
It's hard to say yes.
Yes, it's hard to say yes.
Well, your grandfather made lanterns and did
Yeah,
those
but he
things.
didn't do that before. He
Right,
did that
yeah.
because my father started
It was
the
like
business.
retrofitted
right,
into it.
Right. I mean, he was
was a
handy
bolt-on.
in that he did all kinds of things, but he didn't necessarily work within the, the historical context.
And me and Ryan, we're just here first generation. No one in our families does this.
That's right. Yeah.
But future generations will.
Well, absolutely. We had Avery at her first living history event at 4 months old, sleeping on the ground under a fly.
Yeah.
Listen, man, this has been a really cool event because not many times are both of my teenagers at one event, right? It's usually one or
Because they
the other.
can't handle it to both be in the same place.
No,
at once.
because there's so many other things to do, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
marching band or different extracurricular activities. And today it was like we're working, we're serving people food, and we're doing coffee demonstrations or whatever. And I look up and lunch is done because like Reese just made a fire and made food. And then later I had to make a run for supplies. I came back and dinner was done because Sophie had done that. And they're splitting wood and they're making their fires and they're making things work. And we were one of our quote unquote tents is a fly that we've kind of fashioned into a tent, and I'm watching them kind of like engineer. Okay, it's just working so much, and they're like making it happen. It's been really cool.
It's been
really
cool
cool.
watching your
Awesome.
kids. I've enjoyed talking to them a little bit.
Good. It's good. I like talking to them too.
I would sure hope so.
You're such a good dad.
Oh well, thank you.
Well, do we have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was
About the
thinking.
event?
Okay, so we're doing some camping, and some of us have been camping that longer than others. I was wondering if we have any. Can we share one camping story? Like it can be primitive, it can be modern, but something that was either gone terribly wrong or terribly right. Just something that stuck with us, a camping experience.
I would say Jinglebach wearing my mitten as a,
That's a good one.
sock was a pretty terrible story. So I'm going to bow out on this one.
What do you think, Ethan? You got anything?
I did a little trek last fall. It was early November, and I wanted to go out and do it, period. I just took 2 wool blankets. I didn't take a tent or anything. And that was the best and worst time I've ever had out.
Okay.
But it was incredible, and I can't wait to do it again.
Okay.
Because it was cold, it was damp. Possums sounded like they were Bigfoot running through the woods. There was a cow over a ridge just screaming for some reason that just scared the pants off of me. But I was talking to Alex at the Frontier Trading Company earlier, and there's just something that, as rough as it is and as horrible of a time as you can have doing that, there's something that just keeps calling you back. And I guess it's not really a story, but it's kind of a summary of it.
It's called Type 2 fun. It's
Type
kind
2
of fun
fun.
when you're having it, you're not really enjoying it, but when you look back on it,
Okay.
you think you really enjoyed it. And it's the trips where everything goes well and goes right. Those are not the ones you remember. You
No.
remember the ones where it goes wrong. That same trip I was telling you all about earlier, where we went into Kentucky on the tactical, that Saturday night we slept in a depression and the bottom fell out. It just rained buckets and buckets and buckets. And so Aaron and Steve Jinglebach and I and Jim Jacobs, we were just piled in a pig pile, laying there in a puddle singing. You couldn't sleep. It was cold. It was wet. So we were just laying there singing 18th century songs. And that was a pretty memorable experience.
Yeah, that's great.
The memorable one that actually pops up wasn't historical for a camping experience. It was a Boy Scout Klondike Derby when I was 12, and it was 16 degrees out, and everybody else left. It was too cold, but we stayed, and we had a great time, and nobody froze to death or anything, and we had fun playing in the snow and sleeping in tents and all kinds of stuff.
What's that? Snow.
Yeah, playing in the snow. Yeah.
The year that I started working at Townsend's, my buddy moved down to Texas, and we were going to have a last hurrah. And so he lived down in by Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I lived up northern Indiana. So he and a buddy came up, and we met halfway-ish in Brown County in Hoosier National Forest. And we, none of us knew, like, if the other had been camping before, and it became obvious quickly that
it can happen.
yeah, it became obvious
They
quickly.
weren't married.
So it was funny because each one of us was like, okay, we're going to be here 3 days. That means each person gets a dinner. And my buddy Craig and I, we made this wonderful dinner. Oh no, it was 2 days. So we made dinners, and then this other guy that I didn't know very well, but a little bit, his responsibility was breakfast. And I don't think he'd ever cooked before in his life. And he just brought eggs, and he brought like 4 packages of bacon. And
For 2 days?
wow, for one breakfast. Right? For one breakfast. And
like Ron Swanson, bring me all the bacon that you have.
but like he'd never cooked bacon before, and he didn't want to touch it. So he just poured these packages of bacon in the skillet all at one time, and he made what he called a bacon basket. It was just like all stuck together and intertwined and we chewed on bacon.
Half raw and half overcooked. Ooh, good stuff.
Yeah, and then we decided we were going to go fishing. And we had a map, and we had a compass, and we're like, we're going to go. And we didn't really like the direction that this hiking trail was going to take us because we wanted to go.
You got a map, but you can go anywhere.
And the map didn't show elevations. And so we get to where we're going to fish, and there's like a 50-foot cliff face, and so we wandered off the trail, walking through all sorts of murky still waters and everything. We broke every rule. And our 1 mile hike turned into a 9 mile hike real quick, trying to figure out how to get around the hills and stuff. We were tired when we got back, but we got back right before dark.
To eat the last half of your
That's
bacon
right.
basket.
See, all those stories weren't ideal. And I think that's something to note, just because it's good when it doesn't go that way. I think you don't want it to go ideal.
You don't remember the ideal ones. When everything goes right, it's just another trip.
Unless it's up Martin Station.
Yeah,
It's
everything.
beautiful.
Well, isn't history like that? Though we don't hear who writes history about. Oh, everything went fine.
Yeah.
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 Today
I
was
woke up,
another
I had
day.
coffee, I
Yeah.
worked, I went to bed.
Right.
Yeah. Boring.
Well, I guess that's it.
Well, I
Lead
think
us out,
Ethan-
Jason.
I was going to say Ethan should do the outro.
Okay. You've been listening to the Firelock and Quill podcast. Thanks so much. What else do we say?
Find us online at firelockandquill.com or
That's
on
right.
YouTube or your podcast host.
Instagram.
Instagram.
That's where all the kids are at.
That's right.
Even Facebook. I think we're going to have a Facebook page soon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And
Rock and
soon
roll.
we'll have a Discord server up and going for the
Yeah.
public.
Jason is making a lot of promises.
Yes, he is.
Wow. Jason is writing a lot of checks here. Let's see if he signs them.
I have created the Discord server.
Thank you, Jason. None of the rest of us could figure that out. I know I couldn't.
Uh-huh.
So thank you.
Couldn't do it without you.
Oh, yeah. I'm great.
Thank you to Billy Heck for letting us use his office. Thank you for Martin Station for putting on this great event. And I think that's all we've got. We'll have another fun episode coming out soon.
See you guys.
Goodbye.